Alrighty, thank you everybody for tuning in to this, the 25th iteration of the Konoha Companion. And this is Joshua. I'm your Konoha Companion as always. And on this episode, we're going to be covering Season 1, Episode 24 of Naruto, entitled Start Your Engines, the CHUNIN Exam Begins. And real quick, previously on the last episodes, the squadlings ran into Kakashi in front of the classroom door as they were going to go into the big room. And Kakashi reveals in that moment that if Sakura hadn't shown, he wouldn't have let them in at all. He tells them that he's proud of them, and they go into the classroom. Naruto triumphantly announces himself to the room, and then they get approached by the squadlings of Squad 8 and Squad 10, where Naruto introduces them in short as Hinata, who's shy and weird, Kiba, who's the most annoying of them all. He talks too much, and Kiba thinks that Kiba's the coolest. Shino is mysterious, but also weird. Team 10 is Shikamaru, who's lazy and complains. Choji, who's always eating. And Ino, who's annoying and has a thing for Sasuke like Sakura. Then Kabuto, who we're meeting up with for the first time right now, engages with the rookies and shows them the ropes a bit, right? Tells them that you guys are drawing too much attention to yourselves. The whole room's like staring at y'all, and it explains that he's done this a few times. And at this point, he shows off his ninja info cards that reveal a ton of info on the CHUNIN exams and its participants. Sasuke asks to see the info on Gaara of the Desert and Rock Lee. Kabuto obliges and first goes over Rock Lee, who is revealed to be a taijutsu specialist with shaky skill sets in every other category, who's participating in the CHUNIN exams for the first time, although he is a year older than the squadlings. It's also revealed via a flashback of Kakashi's that Guy Sensei held back Rock Lee and the rest of Team Guy so they could mature a bit and enjoy their youth some more. Kabuto then reveals through his card that he knows very little about Gaara, other than that he's a super talented ninja from the Hidden Sand who has a B-rank mission as a Genin and has never even been scratched on a mission. Right, so this is obviously very impressive. During this talk, Gaara refers to the Hidden Sound Village, not Gaara. During this talk, Kabuto refers to the Hidden Sound Village as small and relatively unknown. This pisses off the Sound Ninja, who attack Kabuto, who appears to, evade the attack with relative ease, but suddenly Kabuto's glasses crack and he kneels down and retches and vomits. And in this moment, Ibiki, the test proctor, and his ranked ninja assistants appear at the head of the room, who then address the room, and the episode ends. And so this episode starts with Ibiki announcing it's time to begin. I am Ibiki Morino, your proctor, and from this moment, your worst enemy. And the room collectively gasps, and suddenly Ibiki points and says, "First, you candidates from the village hidden in the sound, knock it off. Who told you you could fight? You want to be failed before we've even begun?" And Dosu turns and says, "Sorry, it's our first time. Guess we're a little jumpy, sir." Ibiki smiles and goes, "I'll say this once, so listen up. There will be no combat between candidates, no attacking each other without the permission of your proctor, and even then, the use of lethal force is strictly prohibited. Anyone who even thinks of messing with me will be disqualified immediately. Got it?" And so Ibiki's a intimidating authoritarian character who can literally take control of a room of ninja, right? These are all scary dudes. Not all the ninja who are in that room are fun characters like Team 7, 8, and 10, obviously these are like some big, scary older guys in a bunch of these places, and Ibiki comes in there and like lays down the law. Zaku then smiles and chuckles, no fatal force, that's no fun. And the ranked ninja behind Ibiki gets a chuckle out of this. Ibiki then announces, now, if we're ready, we'll proceed to the first stage of the CHUNIN exam. Hand over your paperwork. In return, you'll be given a number. This number determines where you will sit. We will start the written test once you are all seated. And Naruto kind of questions internally, the what? Did he say written? He then sees one of the proctor's assistants shuffling the tests in his hand, and Naruto like has a meltdown, right? He's yelling, no, not a written test, no way. And obviously, he is terrified of a written test. Naruto's no knucklehead, right? So he's probably not going to do the best on a written test. In this moment, the title slide comes in and Naruto reads, start your engines, the CHUNIN exam begins. And at this point, the scene transitions to a room where the written test is being administered and all of the participants are in their seats. There are several of the proctor's assistants in the room watching everything. There's like a proctor per row, right? Like they're looking down the rows and there are guys at the front of the room. Like they got it scoped out. Naruto is extremely anxious about the test, who thinks, I don't even know where the others are sitting. I'm all alone. This is already a disaster. At this point, Sakura is revealed to be sitting a few rows behind Naruto with him in plain sight, and she can see him having a hard time. And she thinks, tough luck for Naruto. Written exams are definitely not his strong point, right? So Sakura is now validating what I was saying earlier. The dude is not going to be any good at written tests. Homie's a knucklehead. Suddenly, Hinata calls out to Naruto, and it's revealed that she's been sitting right next to him this whole time. The moment he sees her, she blushes, right, in like traditional Hinata fashion. Naruto then says, oh, hey, Hinata, where'd you come from? I didn't see you there, right? And again, that's kind of Hinata's MO. She's real quiet around Naruto, and so, yeah, she just kind of slid in. None of us are. Hinata turns and faces Naruto and says, I wanted to say good luck and everything, and gives him a nod. Naruto thanks her, but thinks to himself, whoa, that's weird. I didn't even notice her. Even when she's there, it's like she's not there, right? So again, Naruto is kind of remarking on how Hinata is always kind of quiet and reserved and kind of withheld and, kind of blends in, just like intentionally blending in. Suddenly, Ibiki slams his chalk on the whiteboard and announces, everyone eyes front. There are a few rules you need to be aware of, and I won't answer any questions, so you better pay attention the first time around. Sakura frustratedly questions internally, no questions? What kind of rules are these? Ibiki continues as he writes on the chalkboard, all right, rule number 1 is this. The written part of the exam is conducted on a point reduction system. Contrary to what some of you may be used to, you'll all begin the test with a perfect score of 10 points. 1 point will be deducted for each answer you get wrong. So if you miss 3, your final score will be 7. Naruto, rubbing his chin, thinks and nods. And if I miss 10, my final score will be 0. So Naruto even knows what's up. He ain't even seen the test yet. And Ibiki continues, rule number 2. Teams will pass or fail based on the total scores of all 3 members. And the Genin in the room collectively gasp, right? And it flashes us a few of the teams together, and it reveals Sakura has her head laying on the table, realizing just how bad this is for her. She pops her head up and yells, "What? Wait a second. You're saying we all get scored as a team?" Which is exactly what he just said, and he said he ain't taking no questions. And Ibiki responds sharply, "Silence. I have my reasons, so shut up and listen." And again, Sakura should have known that wasn't going to go well. Homie Ibiki said he's taking no questions. He isn't repeating himself, and anyone who tries to mess with him is getting thrown out immediately. And Sakura questions internally at this point reasons. And yeah, he's got his reasons. And, at this point, she ought to be glad that she didn't get the whole team tossed out for messing with Ibiki, right? I think that it could be considered messing with Ibiki whenever you ask him a question within 2 minutes of him saying that he isn't taking any questions, right? So, Sakura walking a tightrope right here in Josh's world. Let me go ahead and tell you. At this point, Ibiki continues, "Rule number 3. The sentinels you see positioned around the room are there to watch you carefully for any signs of cheating. And for every incident they spot, they will subtract 2 points from the culprit's score. Be warned, their eyes are extremely sharp, and if they catch you 5 times, you'll be dismissed before the tests are even scored." Sakura thinks, sheesh, they make it so there's all sorts of ways that you can lose points. And I guess, in a traditional academic setting, if they catch you cheating, you're thrown out, right? I've been to college, pretty sure you cheat, you're out of the room for sure. So it doesn't even seem as harsh as the academic experiences that I've had. So I don't know. I think Sakura could take that a little bit better on the chin. But Ibiki continues, "Anyone fool enough to get caught cheating by the sentinels doesn't deserve to be here." And one of Ibiki's assistants positioned as a sentinel says, "I've got my eyes on you guys," to the class. Ibiki continues, "If you want to be considered shinobi, then show us what exceptional shinobi you can be." Sakura then thinks, okay, relax. I know I'll do all right, and Sasuke should do fine. So even if Naruto gets a 0, if we do well enough, we should survive this. And just as she thinks this, Ibiki announces one more thing. If any candidate should get a 0 and fail the test, then the entire team fails. Immediately, the squadlings of Team 7 know that they are in trouble. Collectively, all of them. Sakura can't believe it and explains, and asks, "What did he say?" Naruto's meltdown kicks into a whole new gear as he thinks, "They're gonna kill me." Sakura and Sasuke appear in Naruto's mind with glowing, angry yellow eyes. Hinata calls quietly for Naruto, but in that moment, Ibiki continues, "The final question won't be given out until 15 minutes before the end of the testing period. You'll have 1 hour total." The clock hits 3:30 and Ibiki yells, "Begin." Everyone starts working on their tests, and Sakura thinks, "Okay, focus, Sakura. This is where you show your stuff." She then glares at Naruto and thinks, "Just don't blow it, Naruto. Get at least one of them right." She then thinks, "Oh man, this doesn't look good. He's just sitting there. He's gonna choke." Naruto then lets out a big smile and thinks, "What am I worried about? It's just a test. I've done a lot harder things, believe it. All I've got to do is just relax and take my time. Just read through all the questions and find the one I have a chance of answering. No pressure." This man's real honest strategy at this point is to just try and get one. Naruto needs a little bit more confidence, man. You got to be more confident than that. He then looks at the tests and thinks, "Okay, number 1. Oh, I see. I've got to decipher a code. Okay. Okay. Forget that one. What's next? It's like, nah, no thank you. Naruto reads off his test. Line B in the diagram indicates the trajectory of a shuriken thrown at enemy C by ninja A, seated atop a tree 7 meters tall. Describe and formulate the trajectory required if C were positioned at D, E, and F. Also, predict the farthest possible range of the shuriken and explain how you arrived at your answer. Sasuke, looking at his test, thinks these are integrated problems based on principles of uncertainty and requiring complex mechanical energy and analysis. Incredibly advanced stuff. Naruto doesn't have a hope in hell of solving these. In fact, there can't be more than a handful of people here besides me who even understand it. Oh, and at that point, that was Sakura saying that, not Sasuke, excuse me. I misread that. Sakura was thinking that basically there's maybe only 4 or 5 other shinobi in the room who could answer the questions the way she's capable of doing it. At this point, it takes us back to Naruto, who's looking at question 2. He sees the diagram of the trajectories and immediately says, okay, skip that one next. So Naruto is like, no thanks altogether. Sakura frustratedly looks at the paper and thinks, each problem is more difficult than the one before. Naruto appears to have a moment of revelation. Sasuke then thinks, well, that's interesting. I can't begin to understand a single one of these problems. Damn it, man. So Sasuke can't even answer any of them. I wasn't expecting that. I guess the only real expectation that we had was the expectation that Sakura put in our heads, and Sakura put in our heads that Sasuke should do fine. And Sasuke's like, I don't get any of this, bud. So I can't knock Naruto too hard for being a knucklehead if even Sasuke can't answer any of the questions. Okay, so let's apples to apples comparison here. There's some wiggle room for Naruto not to be a complete knucklehead just yet. Naruto, holding the sides of his head, thinks frantically, forget it. This is hopeless. What am I gonna do? What'll I do? What'll I do? And he kind of spins off into space in his own mind. Hinata then looks over at him and blushes but doesn't say anything. Sakura, looking almost desperate at this point, thinks, I need a high score if we're going to have a chance. This is so hard. I'm almost tempted to, no, I can't do that. It's almost like they're trying to get us to cheat. I just hope Naruto and Sasuke don't fall for it. No, they wouldn't. No way. Not even Naruto is that much of a dumbbell, right? At this point, it takes us to Naruto, who's thinking, okay, don't panic. There's only one thing to do. I just have to cheat and not get caught. So right as Sakura is like, no way that these guys are dumb enough to cheat, Naruto's like, oh, I'm cheating. He then looks up and Ibiki looks right at him. At which point Naruto starts bonking himself on the head and thinks, yeah, right, and risks getting thrown out on my butt. I can't do that. Sasuke then looks over at the Sentinels and thinks, it's strange. They make more of a fuss about cheating than they do about the test itself. These Sentinels, watching our every move, trying to catch one of, and suddenly he stops mid-thought when he sees a Sentinel marking something on his paper. He then thinks, somebody just got nailed. That's another thing. Why only a 2-point deduction? It doesn't make sense. Ordinarily, if someone's caught cheating even once, that's grounds for dismissal right there. Yeah, Sasuke, that's what I'm talking about. And suddenly Sasuke has a flashback to Ibiki saying, anyone fool enough to let himself be caught cheating doesn't deserve to be here. Show us what exceptional shinobi you can be. Sasuke then thinks, ha, so that's it. Yeah, that's gotta be it. This is about more than the written exam. The real aim is not to test our knowledge, but our ability to gather information. Yeah, that explains everything. The eagle-eyed sentinels everywhere, these incredibly difficult questions, the fact that only 2 points are deducted for every incident of cheating. Very clever. A ninja must see through deception. He's not actually forbidding us from cheating, he's expecting us to. He's daring us to try and cheat and not get caught. Only exceptional shinobi could get away with it under these circumstances, and that's just what he's looking for. I wonder how many of the others have realized that's what this test is all about. Come on, Naruto, you can figure this out. Use your head before it's too late. Use your head. And it's funny because Sakura has not seen through this deception. And also at this point, Sasuke might be full of shit. But it's neat to see how the squadlings are kind of coming at their different conclusions, right? Sakura is just going to power through the test because she's super smart. Sasuke doesn't understand any of it, but has like cleverly pieced together what he believes to be the actual aim of the test. And Naruto is like a dummy and is just going to have to cheat out of desperation, but he's in the middle of fighting over a conflict internally. Like, he hasn't seen through the deception like Sasuke has. He's just a knuckle dragger, and hasn't even put together the cleverness, right? Like, Sakura possesses the book smarts, Sasuke has like this street smarts, and Naruto is a dumbbell. Speaking of Naruto, at this point it shows us Naruto, who is anxiously shaking and thinks, this is bad, and it takes us back to Sasuke, who thinks, so if the real test here is finding a way to steal the answers without getting caught, the next question is to figure out who's got all the answers. It then shows us Gaara, who has a stream of sand swirling around his hand and off to somewhere. Kankuro sees this and thinks, looks like Gaara's figured it out. Okay, Crow, I'm counting on you. So at this point, Kankuro and Gaara have both evidently either seen through the deception. Well, so Kankuro's definitely seen through the deception. Gaara just may be desperate, but I think it's fair to assume that Gaara's sharp, right? Like, him and Sasuke are like those alphas checking each other out. So I'm certain that Gaara's pieced it together as an excellent shinobi. But that's not certain yet. It shows us Kiba, who has Akamaru sitting on his head relaying answers to him. Akamaru yaps and Kiba writes an answer and says, that's a good boy. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, now for number 4. Akamaru looks around the room and yaps again, and Kiba writes his answer. It shows us Dosu, who has his eyes closed and is listening to the strokes of everyone's pencils and thinks to himself, judging from the rhythm, the duration, and the frequency of the strokes, yes, I see. It then shows, and so at this point, Dosu is able to like hit from the hidden sound, right? Able to listen to these pen strokes and like mathematically in his head formulate what's being written on the paper through nothing but sound. So it's obvious the hidden sound guys are like wielding sound, which may also have something to do with why Kabuto's glass is shattered, right? Real high frequency and a high power. Could definitely do that. So we'll see. We'll see. It then shows us a fly scoping out answers on someone's paper. It gets shooed away, but it winds up landing on Shino's finger, and Shino says to the fly, well, show me. The bug then flies in a figure 8, and Shino responds, 8, of course. And he writes the answer down. So I guess the answer to one of the questions was a simple 8. It then shows us several mirrors strung up to the ceiling by kunai, and it's revealed that Tintin is manipulating them with fine strings, like almost like how Conqueror works, almost like how you'd expect a puppet person to work a puppet. Tintin thinks, Lee, when you can see it, adjust your headband. It then shows us Rock Lee, who's been watching the mirror, and when he gets the angle he needs, he adjusts his headband, and Tintin stops adjusting the mirror. It takes us back to Naruto, who has his face laid on the test and is just melting down. He's listening to the clicks ticking on the clock, and he thinks, tick, tick, tick. Oh man, they couldn't have a digital clock. He raises his head and continues his meltdown, thinking time's running out. That does it. I've got no choice. I've got to cheat. He then lowers his head and thinks, hang on, I can't do that. What if I get caught? What are Sakura and Sasuke gonna think? On the other hand, if I don't get any of these right, I'm sunk, and I'll take them down with me. Either way, I'm dead meat. Suddenly, Hinata quietly whispers, Naruto. Naruto turns and looks at her, and she says, blushingly, he turns and looks at her, and she's blushing big. And she turns and, quietly, on the sly, says, if you want, I could show you my test. And, the beat drops, and Naruto, with a stunned look on his face, thinks, say what? She'd let me look at her test? Why would she want to do that? Unless, of course, it's some kind of trick. Yeah, I bet that's it. No, what am I thinking? No way. Hinata's not like that. But she could have been forced into tricking me by Kiba and the others. I wouldn't put it past them. He then says, this is obviously all real quiet, right? They're not supposed to be cheating. They're in a test environment, right? So they're whispering real low. And he says, hey, Hinata, can I ask you something? Why would you want to show me your answers? Hinata then blushes real big, uncontrollably, and she has to clench her fist, right? She's so nervous. She then responds, why? Well, just because, you see, it's because I don't want you to have to leave. And Naruto kind of questions, huh? Which freezes Hinata up, causing her to blush even harder and turn away. She then kind of fidgets her hands while saying, well, it'd be nice if we could all stick together, the 9 of us, being rookies and all. Naruto smiles big and chuckles and says, that makes sense, I suppose. I thought you were trying to pull a fast one on me. Sorry. And I love how, just smitten Hinata is over Naruto. I wish that she could be a little bit more direct. She's so nervous. It's so funny. But, she's down to ride, man. She's like, hey, cheat off my test, bro. Come through, squad. And so, shout out Hinata. She's shy and a little silly, a little weird. But, man, anyone who's down to, put themselves at risk to get Naruto through is, super squad in my book. Yeah, Naruto at this point thinks, this is my lucky day. What are the chances of sitting next to someone who wants you to cheat off of her? And he shares a big laugh internally. Hinata then slides the paper towards Naruto real low-key style. And just as Naruto goes to look down, a kunai comes flying through, which startles him. But the kunai winds up sticking the guy behind Naruto's test to the table. Naruto's mouth drops, and he's clearly shocked by this, and he thinks, whoa, how did he know? I hadn't even done anything yet. And the guy whose test got kunai'd stands up and demands, what was that all about? And the sentinel who threw the kunai smirks and remarks, 5 strikes and you're out. You just failed the test. And the guy who stood up is the leaf guinea, and he panics and yells, what? It can't be. The sentinel then points at him and demands that you and your teammates will leave the room immediately. His teammates silently stand up and walk away from their stations with their heads down, defeated. He stands there shuddering for a few seconds, but ultimately leaves the room. As he does so, the sentinel calls out, "Candidate number 23, fail. Number 27 and 43, failed." It shows at this point a guinea being drug off by two sentinels as he yells, "It's not fair. It's not fair. I didn't do anything." Another hidden sand shinobi stands up and slams his hands on the table in protest, demanding, "What? Who says I cheated 5 times? Where's your proof? How can you keep track of all of us? You got the wrong guy. How do you know I wasn't just..." And he suddenly gets pinned against the wall by one of the sentinels, who yells, "Sorry, pal. We're chosen for this duty because we don't make mistakes like that. You can't even blink without us seeing it. We're the best of the best, and you, my friend, are history. Now get out and take your teammates with you." The sentinel then unpins the sand guinea, who then crumbles to the ground. This sets the entire room on edge, and Naruto is watching all of this anxiously when suddenly Hinata whispers, "Psst, Naruto," which gets Naruto's attention. She then continues, "Go ahead, look." Just as he looks down, he hears the sentinel at the end of the row's pencil tapping away. Naruto then looks over at the sentinel who's writing, and the sentinel finishes writing and looks straight up at Naruto, which freezes Naruto up. Naruto then says to Hinata under his breath, "I appreciate it, but no." This clearly concerns Hinata, but Naruto continues, "Hey, I'm an ace ninja. I don't need to cheat to pass this." And Hinata responds, well, okay. Right, like, Hinata's definitely, like, always down to let Naruto do what he's trying to do, but, like, is definitely a little confused by this. She's definitely probably expecting Naruto to dive all over that opportunity. She looks down at his empty test and asks, "Are you sure?" And Naruto responds, "Yeah, besides, if I get caught or anything, I wouldn't want you getting into trouble." And this just blows Hinata's mind, and she thinks he cares. Right? Like, the thought that Naruto's being considerate of her is like just everything that she could want. She then responds, yes, you're right. Stupid idea. I'm sorry." Well, don't bag on yourself just because you and him came to a different conclusion. It was a stupid idea. The point of the test is to cheat. Naruto is just a dunce. Naruto responds, "Nah, forget about it." He then turns away, and it's revealed that he's crying all over the place. And he thinks, "Yeah, right. I ought to have my head examined. When the heck did I get so noble?" It then takes us over to Sakura, who's working 1,000,000 miles per hour on her test, actually just doing it like a smarty pants. Neji busts out his Byakugan to take a look through the guinea sitting in front of him to gather his answers. Sasuke uses his Sharingan to imitate the movements of someone else's pencil. As he does this, he thinks, "Bingo, I hit the jackpot with this guy." Ino looks ahead at Sakura while thinking, "Look at her. She's cranking through this thing. Okay, Sakura, I'll concede that you've got a brain behind that oversized forehead of yours. Now I think I'll put it to work for me. You ought to be flattered, girl. I don't hit just anyone with my mind transfer jutsu." She then casts her hand signs and casts jutsu, taking over Sakura's mind and leaving her own body limp. Shikamaru sees this and remarks to himself, "So Ino's got her jutsu working, I see. About time." Choji thinks, "Way to go, putting that brainiac to work for us." Which I don't know how Choji necessarily saw who she took over. Maybe they talked about it beforehand. But somehow Choji knows that Ino's taken over Sakura. Ino thinks, as she takes over Sakura's body, "Thanks, Sakura, for letting me hang out in your soul for a bit, even if it is a little cramped in here." She then picks up Sakura's paper and starts looking it over and thinks, "I've got to memorize these answers quick so I can pass them on to Choji and Shikamaru." Suddenly, a sentinel calls out, "Number 59, you fail. Numbers 33 and 9, failed." Kabuto, at this point, thinks that's the 13th team to be dismissed. Suddenly, another sentinel calls out, "Number 41, fail. Numbers 35 and 62, failed." One of them demands, "Hey, no way." And you can hear them getting, like at that point, you can hear him getting kicked out of the room by force, but it's like off screen. It then shows us Gaara, who's holding up a hand sign with his right hand. Ibiki sees this and remarks on Gaara internally, thinking, "Look at this one. Cool as a cucumber. Stays focused as if nothing was happening. Not bad for a novice." He lets out a small smile. At this point, it shows Gaara forming a swirling vortex of sand in his hand that turns into a tightly formed ball, which turns into an eye. It shows us the point of view of the eye as it opens, and Gaara says, "The opening of the third eye, invisibly linked to the optic nerve." Gaara then crushes the eye in his hand and it turns into sand, which then floats about the entire room. The sand then forces itself into the eyes of one of the genin, and while the ninja addresses the sand in his eye, Gaara's third eye comes back together and allows Gaara to look at the paper through it. Suddenly, Kankuro raises his hand and asks to go to the restroom. A sentinel handcuffs him and walks him with a rope, who says, "We go with you to make sure you're not up to anything." Kankuro responds, "That's perfectly understandable." Once Kankuro and the sentinel make it to the restroom, Kankuro takes a piss. Mid-piss, he thinks, security's pretty tight around here, but these sentinels aren't as eagle-eyed as they think they are. After all, they haven't even noticed that there's one more sentinel than there used to be. Right, Crow. And it's revealed the sentinel that is with Kankuro is actually Crow, his puppet. Back in the classroom, Naruto looks at the clock and thinks, "Only 20 minutes left and I haven't done squat. I'm so busted. Unless, in 15 minutes, they'll give out the 10th question." So, that's what it comes down to. Everything is riding on that. Believe it. And the episode ends, right? And it was a fun episode. Not a whole lot managed to happen, right? Like, effectively, they went from the meeting room to the testing room and got 60% the way through the test. 66% the way through the test. And so, most of the dialogue happened in people's minds. We got to see some cool skills, but relatively slow episode, if we're being honest, compared to what we've already seen. But I love that Ibiki set the sound ninja straight right off the bat. Those dudes were jerks to Kabuto, who seems really nice. So fuck those guys. I think it's dope that the written part of the exam was actually a test to see how good these guys could gather info while under a watchful eye. Or, at least that seems to be the case, right? I don't think that anybody's answering these questions. Everybody's having to cheat. It's showing how everybody's cheating, right? So, it's either that's the point or everybody's just having to cheat, right? One of the two. So it's either dope that it's a test that's put together to see how well these guys can gather information, or it's so hard that these guys are having to gather information. In either way, we're getting to see these guys gather information, and it's a fun process to witness. Naruto was gonna cheat, but he ultimately decided not to. So he's like the ultimate fool in the situation. Sasuke was the first one to catch on, right? A ninja must see through deception. Sakura also failed to see through the deception, but luckily she's like book smart enough to actually pass the test. So again, Sakura is going to pass the test because she's book smart enough. Sasuke is going to pass the test because he's street smart enough. And Naruto finna have to get lucky. The test commenced, and the way these guys all gathered their info is pretty dope, right? Kiba uses Akamaru. Gaara uses his sand to make a floating eye. Team Guy has 10-10 come through in the clutch with her ninja tools. Ino mind transfers into Sakura and memorizes her answers. Neji uses the Byakugan to see through the person in front of him and look directly at his paper. Sasuke uses the Sharingan to copy the pen strokes of another Genin. Konkuro's got the crow out there imitating a sentinel, got stuff going on. So there's like neat stuff happening, right? Tons of teams get eliminated throughout the process, right? Like at least 14. I wonder what Konkuro has planned with Crow now. Like what's that gonna do for him? It's also pretty badass puppet to slide in like that. Like it's the first time I think I've actually gotten to see anything out of Crow. I think that he went to pull Crow out once whenever he was having the confrontation with Team 7 and the Konohamaru Ninja Team, but I don't think he ever, if I recall correctly, didn't actually get to bust it out. So I believe Crow imitating a sentinel is our first experience of the Crow puppet. Naruto is completely gambling on being able to get the 10th question right or it's all over. I mean, there's 15 minutes left after they give out the 10th question. You could always still like fall back to and cheat off of Hinata. But we're going to see how it pans out. Ultimately, I can't remember how many total people were participating based off of the ninja card information that was presented on Kabuto's ninja card, but it definitely seems like, I think there was like 72 in the Leaf, and there was less than 72 in all the other villages combined, right? So it's like at the most 144, and 14 teams have been eliminated, so that's at least a third of the field so far has been eliminated, just through them not being able to cheat effectively. I think it's probably safe to assume that another third of them are going to do bad enough on the test that they're not going to make it through. And so it seems like really like only like half or a third of the people who like came here for the CHUNIN exams are even going to pass the first part. So it's a tough ordeal that these guys are going through right now. I'm excited to see what's going to happen on the next episode. And with that, I feel like I can put a bow on this episode, right? I mean, obviously I can talk about this stuff till the cows come home, but we covered the episode in its entirety. We talked about the things that were important. We covered last episode. We kind of looked ahead at next episode a little bit. And so, yeah, with that, I'm going to put a bow on it. Everybody, this is Joshua. I'm your Konoha companion. Thank you all so much for your love and support. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you all so much.